Okay. Okay. So, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the virtual tour of Ikebana Ohara Schools on the online exhibition. My name is Atsushi Murata, a Director of Information and Culture Center of the Embassy of Japan in Canada. So today, I'm very glad to have this opportunity with you to explore the world of arts of Ikebana. So before beginning, I want to advise you that during the event, during the tour, so you can freely raise a question by using the Q&A function of the Zoom. I believe you can find the icon to click on your Zoom screen. I hope you can find. So now, let's start the event. So firstly, I'd like to invite His Excellency Kawamura Yasuhisa, Ambassador of Japan, to say a few words. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome you to this virtual tour of the Ohara School of Ikebana's exhibition, Drift Away. Je vous souhaite la bienvenue à cette visite. I would like to thank Ms. Michelle Baron for conducting the tours of the exhibition. I hope this event can make everyone drift away from the coronavirus and enjoy nature and Ikebana. Merci de votre présence à cette visite. Thank you for being with us today. Please enjoy the show.
Thank you, Ambassador. So I'm pleased to invite Mrs. Michelle Baron from the Ottawa School, Ottawa chapter, to conduct the virtual tour. So please, Michelle, start.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. On behalf of the Ohara School of Ikebana, President Marie-Ève Coupal, and Exhibition Chair Wendy Batson, I would first like to thank the Embassy of Japan for hosting the extensive preparation of the Ohara School Drift Away virtual exhibition. In the past, the Embassy has generously hosted an annual exhibition, which was not possible this year. But their guidance and hard work in preparing the materials is greatly appreciated and very important to the school. And a special thanks to Ambassador Kawamura for his ongoing support of the Ikebana School, and again to the Embassy, who bring their collaborative spirit to events such as this. Thank you, Mr. Murata, Satoko Trivers, Gail Lermine, and Brendan Wallace for your assistance and ensuring that this virtual tour was possible. I also want to thank Marie-Ève Coupal, President of the Ohara School of Ikebana, Wendy Batson, my wonderful teacher and dedicated member of the Ottawa Ikebana community, Donna Cowell for the beautiful photography that you will be seeing throughout this exhibition, and Sandra Olney for providing support and guidance to both the exhibition and this presentation. So overall, this year has been an unusual one for everyone, including the Ohara School. Teachers and students have been unable to offer and attend regular workshops and classes, events, and in-person exhibitions have had to look very different. Currently, we are in a place of transition. With the pandemic, many of us are self-isolating and locked down in quarantine from home, while many others are essential workers, carefully maneuvering a newly defined public space, supporting healthcare, food delivery, and services for communities. All of us now move through public space differently, typically wielding hand sanitizer and face masks, careful not to infect our private spaces. So this has opened up opportunities for a virtual Ikebana exhibition. Speaking of remote working and virtual events, as I'm currently from home, I'm hoping there won't be any technical hiccups on my end, but my apologies if there are any delays. As well, I have two adorable cats, Victor and Yuki, who may walk behind me at some point to actively participate in the presentation. You're welcome to ask any questions in the question and answers feature on the Zoom call. I will do my very best to answer, but it should be noted that I'm a beginner of the Ikebana practice, a non-Japanese member of the school, and very early on in my understanding of the art. So I will subsequently look to my knowledgeable cohorts, teachers, and Ikebana experts at the Ohara School to answer any questions that I may not have an immediate answer to. If you're interested in future classes, events, and exhibitions, you're more than welcome to consult the Ottawa Ohara website and the Embassy's website for information. So before we jump into our tour of the online exhibition, I want to give you a very brief overview of Ikebana itself as an art, a practice, and a poignant reflection of spirituality, history, and culture. Ikebana is the art of flower arranging. Ikebana, or Keido, means living flowers or way of flowers, and its origins trace back hundreds of years with its historical roots embedded in the Heian period in Japan, when floral offerings were made at altars. The history continued as Ikebana was used in the tokonoma alcove of Japanese homes, through histories of Buddhist tea masters, and evolving through numerous distinct schools of thought and teachings. Ikebana exists as a contemporary art, combining theory, careful practice, and perhaps a bit of patience. In contrast to Western approaches to floral arrangements in vases, which prioritize large, blooming flowers with complementing colors, Ikebana is a discipline that aims to bring out the inner qualities of nature, using plant and flower material throughout their life stages, and playing with elements of space, line, form, intersections, and harmony. For example, one flower may be blooming and facing the sky, while another may be a yellowing small bud and stretching up, interwoven with a bent budless branch. Through design, tension, emphasis, and under certain rules of construction, Ikebana arrangements aim to express emotion without words and convey meaning, just as paintings, sculptures, and other forms of art would. Although there are several schools of Ikebana teaching and approaches to the art, one particular uniting idea of the practice is the beauty in asymmetry and the exploration of opposites. Many arrangement styles highlight a play between visible, invisible, presence, absence, life, death, nature, and curation. Although each arrangement style has rigid rules and requirements for heights, angles, placements, and positions of materials, all of the deliberate and careful structure may ultimately result in an unapologetically unplanned creation. As Wendy always tells me, less is more. The resulting arrangement may evoke something entirely unexpected. As I mentioned, there are several schools of Ikebana, each following a particular set of rules and arranging techniques. Ikenobo was the first Ikebana school established in Kyoto and is still in operation today. The Ohara School of Ikebana was founded by Unshin Ohara, he lived between 1861 and 1916, who was born in Matsu City, Shimane Prefecture, Japan. Through his exploration of regional mountains and fields, he developed the Moribana style of Ikebana that utilized shallow, circular ceramic vases and kenzans. 4 headmasters succeeded Unshin, each making his own distinctive artistic and organizational contributions to the school. Under the leadership of Ohara's son, Kun, early 1900s, an innovative teaching method and group lesson took shape, and for the first time in history, teaching certificates were awarded to women. The Ohara School developed 4 approaches: Hana Isho, Moribana, Heika, and Hanamai. These range from basic to advanced in their construction, rules, and study. The quintessential Ohara arrangements utilize their landscape. Currently, the school is under the leadership of the young 5th headmaster, the great-great-grandson of the founder. His name is Hiroki Ohara. The Ohara School has over 1 million students throughout the world, with main offices in Tokyo, Osaka, and Kobe. There are 158 chapters in Japan, as well as 56 chapters and 34 study groups outside of Japan. The Ottawa chapter of the Ohara School was established in 1989 by a founding group of 6 members. The chapter currently has over 60 members each year, and they offer an array of Ikebana classes, events, and lessons. Members participate in the annual Ohara School Public Exhibition, which has been kindly hosted by the Ottawa Embassy of Japan for a number of years. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to take you all through our Driftaway exhibition. So just give me one moment and hopefully I will be successful in showing you all the event. So, excuse me for just a moment. I think, there we go. So you should be able to hopefully see the picture as well as the author beneath it. So the public exhibition this year looked very different. With COVID, events and community participation became very difficult. The exhibition chair, teachers, and members decided to offer opportunities for students and teachers to make arrangements that appear on their lawn, while giving the public opportunities to enjoy from their vehicles. 3 locations in Ottawa, 1 in Gananoque, were held September 26th on a bright and beautiful fall day. The theme of Drift Away supported 2 meanings. The use of driftwood. Sorry, there's someone at my door. Anyway, so the theme of Drift Away supported 2 meanings. The use of driftwood, which is characteristic and very prevalent in the Ottawa River, and drifting in hopes that, again, COVID would drift away. Modern Ikebana practices call for the same sensitivity to seasons, the environment, and the scenery it is situated within. For the Drift Away exhibition, the autumn Ottawa setting and COVID backdrop became paramount to the arrangement. So as you can see on my screen here, our first exhibit is the memoriam for Aileen Chrétien, a lifelong Ikebana student, strong supporter of the Ottawa Ohara School, and wife of Canada's former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. Mrs. Chrétien started taking lessons with the Ohara School's sub-grandmaster, Mr. Mitsugi Kikuchi, more than 30 years ago, and remained a strong supporter of the school all her life, attending the Ikebana exhibitions, events, and even paying several visits to the school's headquarters in Japan for lessons. Mrs. Chrétien was active in the Ikebana community, and it is with privilege that the school dedicates this arrangement to her. Driftwood root circles around the vase, hugging one of Mrs. Chrétien's favorite flowers, white roses. Mugo pine sprigs complete the classical Bunjin-style Ikebana arrangement and offer its viewers a moment of remembrance and respect. And so before I move on to the next one, I believe there was a comment in the question and answers. Why did you decide to go to the Ohara School of Ikebana? There are several schools of Ikebana in Ottawa. Ohara is one of them. Primarily, I chose the Ohara School because I hadn't yet studied any Ohara design, and so I wanted to try some of the arrangements. And the other reason was because they were very present online, and I could go through all of the pictures on their website, and so it just immediately got me excited to try some of the classes. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the next picture. There we go. Okay, so the next handful of photos are Mr. Kikuchi's arrangements. Mr. Kikuchi is an integral member of the Ottawa Ohara School, the sub-grand master and inspiration to the school's students. Careful design choices, such as the adorable placement of the aster next to the gooseneck gourd, or here, let me go to the next photo. There we go. Or here, where the Japanese maple and the hydrangea seem to be in conversation, are indicative of the Ohara approach. And here's his third piece here. Mr. Kikuchi's emphasis on flow of materials is also notable, and the viewer's gaze moves from one side to the other of all of his work. The materials in his pieces never sit alone or in isolation. They always appear to be interacting with one another, balancing the different materials and the simplicity of the design. And here's his next one. Okay, so as I flip through the next exhibition photos, I will mention their author and the arrangement styles. In Ohara, there are 11 arrangement styles: Hana Isho, Hana Kanade, Haika, Moribana, Hana Mai, Rimpa, Bunjin, Shohinka, and 2 variations of free expression with many subtypes in each category. So you'll get to see some of them during the exhibition. This arrangement that you're seeing on the screen here is by Donna Cowell. It is a Moribana upright style using driftwood, variegated pampas grass, cedar, hydrangeas, and chrysanthemum. The chrysanthemum reaches up, capturing our focal point with what appears to be a wonderful waterfall of grasses integrated within the design. And I'm just going to reach up again to the questions. It is, yes, it is a similar presentation to the one last week. So if you're finding this a little bit repetitive, or you don't want to see me go through the exhibition and you'd rather go on your own time, that I completely understand. What is an Ikebana school? So that's another really great question. An Ikebana school is a kind of subsect, or like a field of thought or an approach to Ikebana. So these schools were created by founders who had a very a specific vision of what they wanted Ikebana to look like, or approaches that they wanted to bring. And the members of those schools learn those teachings. And so when you go to a different school, you learn a slightly different variation of teaching, and perhaps a slightly different approach to the spirituality behind it, and so forth, which always keeps things interesting. And the other question is that it is my impression that on the everyday level, Ikebana is an activity for women, yet the schools were established by men. So Ikebana is for everyone, which is very exciting. Regardless of what gender you are or how old you are, there's so much you can take from Ikebana at any age. Like any type of art medium, there's going to be a history of who has access to that art, who has access to the teachings of that art, who has access to the materials used for that art, and who has the funding to establish schools or communities for that art. So Ikebana is one of those things, but we're at the point now where specifically for the Ikebana that I've had the pleasure of working with in Ottawa, with the different classes, it's open to everyone, which is exciting. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into the arrangements. So the next picture here, here again, we have one by Mr. Kikuchi. This is a Moribana upright style using driftwood, spruce cones, barberry, mycanthus, and chrysanthemum. The small yellow flowers clambering out of the pine cones evoke a sense of urgency or advancement of maybe either the autumn season making its way for winter, or our smaller, more restrained movements during the pandemic. I'll let everyone take a moment to take a look at all of the pine cones used in this display. Wonderful. So Helene Westington gives us another Moribana upright style using driftwood, grapevine, Amur maple, boxwood, Japanese yew, chrysanthemum, and small garden chrysanthemum. An autumn colored arrangement with tight spiraling components and fall leaves reaching out towards the top. And in this one, you really see a beautiful emphasis on how driftwood can be used as a container. So rather than a ceramic vase, which is typically used in Ikebana for the container, for larger pieces such as this, the driftwood becomes the container. Okay, so Lynn White offered an advanced Hana Isho one-row arrangement using a plethora of materials, including canna, malva, gladiola, celosia, chrysanthemum, bittersweet, fern, bergenia, penny setum, and grass. This arrangement is low, sprawling, and stable in appearance, with jets of color extending in 3 main points, as you can see here. And again, it appears like the driftwood connects all 3 sections of the Ikebana. Okay, so this next piece is by Wendy Batson. And as an advanced teacher, Wendy created an installation standing over 7 feet tall, a Moribana upright and rising style, and a memoriam for her dog Tito, who passed away just prior to the exhibition. Driftwood, corkscrew hazel, orchid, giant hosta and sage are used to create a peaceful scenery, towering like an elegant monument with heavy leaves that swayed gently during the cool autumn breeze. The white orchids in full bloom, soaking in the sun and paying respect to her beloved companion. In many of these pieces, several pieces of driftwood are used. And in some of them, you can see the way the different pieces of wood connect with each other and move in their own way. Samantha Hogue designed a Hana Isho inclining form arrangement using driftwood that reminded her of the cellular shape of COVID, and sunflowers, nine barks, hyperseum propped out of the wood with careful asymmetry. Each arrangement, including Sam's, has hidden containers filled with water to ensure the longevity of the plants and flowers. Concealed in this arrangement are small vats of water and kenzans used to keep the material propped at the perfect inclined angle while still ensuring that they get enough water. So this next arrangement is mine. It's a Hana Isho radial form using driftwood, maple, chrysanthemum, daisy chrysanthemum, aster, and leather fern to evoke warm feelings of seasonal change. The gradient colors of the maple leaves stand in stark contrast with the purple chrysanthemums and highlight the tension between the driftwood reaching up and the maple reaching out and towards their left. Although it's hard to tell from the photo, this arrangement stood approximately 4 feet tall, and if you look very closely, you can see what appears to be a tiny wooden turtle sunbathing at the base and keeping the entire thing from toppling over. And he has a tiny little tail that we attached, which is adorable. Oops. Okay, so this next piece here is made by Lorraine Parody. She created a Hana Isho rising form arrangement using driftwood, smoke tree, commercial chrysanthemum, and cedar. She carefully crafted this arrangement using the natural shape of the driftwood as a guide. The viewer's eyes are immediately drawn up and down to the bright purple of the chrysanthemum. Lindsay McCretcher created a realistic landscape using nine bark, pampas grass, leather fern, brown-eyed Susan, Sambuca elderberry. And this is an explosion of plant life that looks as though it could sit on the edge of the Ottawa River. The tall grass leaning to one side gives the arrangement a sense of movement and flow. Mai Nguyen uses a beautiful vase to create a classic Bunjin style arrangement with driftwood, mugo pine, Fuji and Fuji chrysanthemum. Minimal in its design, the arrangement's careful placement balances simplicity and allows the curves of the wood to shine in the display. This is a wonderful example of the different ways to utilize driftwood. In this arrangement, the wood is used as a focal point and one of the main components of the arrangement. This is in contrast to some of the earlier pieces, like Lorraine Parody, who utilized the tall driftwood as more of a container for the overall arrangement. Marie-Ève Coupal, the president of the Ottawa chapter, created a tall rising form arrangement, displaying the autumn plant materials like weeping willow, wild asters, sunflowers. I think this is CC Fuga and burning bush to create their full beauty. The stark, showering weeping willow cascades around the beautiful sunflowers for onlookers to look from afar. Marie-Ève's eye for driftwood and interesting material is inspiring, and her ability to place material in arrangements in record-breaking time is a sight to behold. And again, with this one, it's hard to tell for scale, except that you can see the house behind it. It's huge. It's a very, very tall piece. Now I'm just going to check the question and answers here. So one question says, in your opinion, what makes a successful arrangement? I think ultimately in Ikebana, a successful arrangement, okay, the school would probably want me to say that a successful arrangement follows all of the rules and is to a T, one style or another. And I think I would agree. And I would also probably like to add that, again, Ikebana arrangements are supposed to evoke something. You're supposed to feel something as you approach it. And that can be a variety of different things. But as long as the onlooker feels something when they see it, as long as they then, yeah, then I think that's successful. I do have one comment saying to share the screen, please. I'm hoping everyone is able to see my screen. If you're having trouble, let me know. The last question is, who can teach Ikebana? So there's a rigorous credential process for Ikebana and Ikebana certification. Each of the schools have a slightly different process, but the teachers have to ultimately complete a number of lessons and a number of accreditation exams in order to be accredited for teaching. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next one. And here we have a collaborative piece. This was created by Cliff Burns, Penny Stewart, Elaine Collins, and Sandra Olney, using driftwood, jack pine, ferns, rudbeckia, hydrangea, coleus, bittersweet, birch trunks, dogwood, maple, hosta, mycanthus, water lettuce, mums, phlox, calla lily, and iris leaves. So a lot of different materials went into this design. This is a beautiful one-row arrangement, and it curves around naturally and blends into the background as if it was designed by nature. I'm going to take you through a close-up of some of this particular arrangement. So the next few photos are elements of it. And again, as I mentioned earlier, with some of them, if you move close enough, you're able to see some of the containers and how some of the plants stay hydrated during this whole process. Okay, so this next piece by Mai Nguyen, this arrangement utilizes inclining style to highlight the natural simplicity of curly willow, sunflower, monstera, and wild aster. The ability for wind to flow through the material and the shadows that the material create feel as important as the plants themselves. The way the arrangement seems to be reaching left is masterfully balanced by the heavy leaf and the smaller branch reaching upward to the right side of the arrangement. This particular arrangement also brings up an interesting newer component of Ikebana that many of us have come across since March: photographing arrangements. The way the shadows sit, or the way the sunlight hits one side of the branch, or the plants in the background of the photograph may all impact the overall reception of the arrangement. The photograph itself becomes a part of the exhibition. As we see here, photographs are obviously integral to the overall exhibition. So it's interesting. I'm sure Donna is much more of an expert than I am in this, but the composition of the photograph definitely feels like it either feeds into the Ikebana display, it potentially emphasizes some of the designs that you may or may not see if you're there in person, or I suppose in some instances it could change the reception of the arrangement altogether. And again, it looks like we have a question. Oh yes, so Mr. Murata would like to answer a couple of these questions. He could absolutely do so. Did you want to do that now, or would you like to wait until the end? I'm not hearing him jump in, so I'm assuming then that I'll bring him in kind of closer to the end of the presentation. Okay, so in contrast to the previous arrangement, Mai Nguyen utilizes flowy materials that evoke fluid movement. The smoky bush, variegated pampas grass, and chrysanthemums create a much fuller design and offer an opposition to the earlier work that we just saw. So Margaret Wright chose an upright style using variegated Solomon seal, sage, and Callistephus in a very classic Ohara looking display. The half moon container is a classic for the school and highlights the careful proportions of each branch in relation to each other. And again, each design in Ikebana has very rigid rules and ideas of how to approach it. And so this is a great example of that. You can see all of the different heights of the branches and the flower material. Irma van Rooten created a landscape near view using oak, celosia, and leather fern. Burgundy being the most prominent autumn color in this arrangement, emphasized by the greenery and the angle of the maple branches. Karen McClure also created a landscape near view, but the look feels entirely different as she used viburnum, leather fern, cosmos, solidago, and mycanthus. The light purple flowers seem to pop readily in conversation with one another between the branches. And again, this is really interesting where you get two arrangements where they use very similar material, but ultimately looks like a very different piece. And I did get a question, what is the difference between Ikebana and Western flower arrangements? Typically, the Western flower arrangements really prioritize flowers that are in their height of life, where they're in full bloom, and they are all at bloom relatively at the same time. They typically use taller vases, and the number of materials isn't necessarily counted, whereas Ikebana, there's a lot longer history of study when it comes to the spirituality of Ikebana, when it comes to the way to utilize material and the angle and the way the material is presented is very different. So the approaches to Western and Japanese flower arranging are very different. How long have I been practicing Ikebana, and how long does it take a person to be able to teach? From my understanding, it takes many, many, many years for people to be able to teach it. I've only been practicing Ikebana for a few years, so I'm very new, but I'm very keen to continue learning. So I'm going to go to the next display here. So Alison Kummer used a spiraling fasciated willow with her sunflowers and hosta to create a rising form reaching up towards the sun, sitting at 3 distinct heights. The willow branches seem to be at play with the large sunflowers. So again, this style or this particular arrangement highlights the difference in heights that's required in each arrangement. But there's still a lot of room for play because, of course, those 3 heights could be met with very different materials and it would result in a very different outcome. So Elizabeth Armstrong created a freestyle Heika arrangement using driftwood, anthurium, and clematis seed head. The dark plant creates a beautiful opposition with the light-colored vase and sits carefully positioned amongst the driftwood. This tall vase arrangement is particularly tricky because you use very carefully placed wood inside the lip of the container to hold the materials in place. Nancy McLeod uses bleeding heart, bridal wreath, and spirea to create a bunjin arrangement. Although asymmetrical, the piece feels balanced with the delicate flowers and tall branches. In Ikebana, knowing which leaves to remove, which branches to cut, and what flowers to emphasize is critical to the success of the arrangement. Simplicity can be the most difficult to tackle. And I believe we have another question. Can you talk a little bit more about how you prepare the materials for your arrangement? Yes, absolutely. So the materials can be are typically picked depending on the season. Again, Ikebana is very seasonal and very environment situated. So depending on where you are, you might have very different materials. The materials in winter in Japan versus summer in Ottawa look very different. So that's the first component. The second one is picking them. Sometimes they're store-bought, depending again on what's available. Sometimes in the middle of winter in Ottawa, we are very limited. But otherwise, they could be picked from your garden. That's where some of the hostas came from. They could be picked at the side of the road if you find a beautiful branch or beautiful weeds or anything. And they're picked. And then depending on the type of flower, there's different ways to ensure that they're ready for the Ikebana arrangement. So many materials need to sit in very cold water overnight to ensure that they are sturdy enough to be placed in an arrangement for the next day. Or for example, if you're using driftwood, I know Mariev and Wendy have a lot of experience dragging driftwood up from the river and scrubbing all of the driftwood to ensure that there's no lichen or anything on it, and then letting it dry out before use. That's another component. And as well, when you're preparing the materials, looking at your material and really respecting, does this look like it should go into a tall vase, or does this lean towards a particular arrangement style? And that will really indicate what type of container you should use and how tall you need to cut the material, and if you should go look for more. So the number of materials used is also a component. And so if you find two really beautiful materials, you'll probably need to go find a third one. So all of that comes into play as you're preparing for classes, as you're preparing for arrangements, and as you're preparing the arrangement to be created. And so another question, does Ikebana leave room for students to develop their own aesthetic while working with and respecting the rules? Do you have a particular aesthetic? I think at this point, I don't maybe necessarily have a particular aesthetic, but even though there are rules as to what angle a particular part of the arrangement needs to sit at, what type of branch you're using or what type of flower you're using, everything is kind of varied. And so because of that, there's a lot of play in style, there's a lot of play with materials. And so absolutely, there are many artists who have been able to develop a very iconic Ikebana aesthetic, or a very if you look at some arrangements, for example, you might be able to tell what school they come from. I don't think I'm at that point yet, but I know that I'm sure the teachers are able to do that. So yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something that can be developed throughout your Ikebana exploration. Okay, so the next piece here. So Derek Kitchen here, he created a Moribana realistic landscape arrangement using sunflowers, hydrangea, peony leaves, begonia. There's that difficult plant again. I think it's CC Fugia, moon moss, Brussels sprouts, and driftwood. This low height arrangement feels like it could be found sunning at the side of a riverbank. The driftwood sits amongst the plant material naturally. And again, this really highlights the different ways that you can use driftwood, or different ways that you can utilize driftwood in different types of Ikebana arrangements. Okay, so this next piece by Patricia Holland, she uses a Moribana style arrangement, and she used driftwood, zinnias, hosta, ninebark, zebragrass, and cosmo leaves. The flowers are placed keenly at 3 distinct heights and angles to complement the driftwood jutting out on the right side. Lindsay McCretcher uses burning bush and pampas grass for a simple arrangement with 2 containers that seem to reach towards each other. The careful bends in the material allow for the viewer's eye to be drawn from one side to the other and back again. And again, this is a really great example of how you can use different types of materials and different angles of the materials to get really interesting effects. Patty McLaughlin created a water reflecting arrangement using black spruce, strawflower, coxcomb, Labrador tea, and bog grasses. A heavy, dark vase creates the base of an airy, delicate set of materials. If the viewer moves closer, the reaching branch is reflected in the still surface of the water, as if on a riverbank. And this is one of my favorite styles of Ikebana arranging. Just for that, I really like the way you can see the reflection of the material in the water. Anne Levingson creates a one-row arrangement using Mycanthus, sweet pea, dahlia, and purple leaf 9-bark. Look at the difference in height of the main materials. Nothing sits at exactly the same height or exactly the same angle, and it takes patience and a very careful eye to do that. If you look, you can see the 3 kenzans sitting in the container. They are very heavy blocks with nails on them to help support the material that you put in. And in one row, you have to be very careful as to how you place the materials alongside each other. And again, the heights are very crucial in this type of arrangement. So we're back to the first one. So let me just stop sharing my screen and I'll just kind of finish up here. So ultimately, Ikebana is a practice in careful placement, in aesthetics, in mirroring nature, in simplicity, and in imperfection. The designs created become more than a combination of materials, but something that evokes something larger, be it the changing of seasons, the available material due to climate change, the size and placement of the arrangement, maybe because of COVID, and you want something larger so people can see it as they drive by. And ultimately, the emotions and creativity that the artist brings to the arrangement will shape the viewer's experience. I want again to thank the embassy and everyone involved in this virtual tour. I appreciate all of your time. And I appreciate all of you who came to join us today. I'm going to pass the presentation on to Mr. Murata in closing, as well as I think he wanted to answer a few of the questions that you asked. And I think he's on mute. Mr. Murata, are you able to, to join the presentation?
Hi, Michelle. Thank you very much. It's a
Thank you.
great presentation. I really enjoyed, and also I think I can deepen my understanding of the Ikebana world. And so thank you very much. It's very nice. And so the Ikebana exhibition is going on until the end of coming weekend. So I hope you can. Some people already visited the website, but I hope everybody can visit again and enjoy the website and the exhibition and the Ikebanas. And also, I would like to say thank you to my team members because embassy. So each member of the each member of my team worked very hard to realize this event. We never had a virtual event before coronavirus happened. So actually, we really made a lot of effort, and I like to say thank you to my team members, and also here. So, well, my staff here. So I want to introduce Satoko, and so say something.
Thank you very much for joining our virtual tour today. As Mr. Murata mentioned, the virtual exhibition will be on until Sunday. I hope you will visit and have a closer look to each wonderful piece that the Ohara chapter members created. So thank you so much for joining today.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I hope everybody enjoyed and still have some questions. So I so pass the screen to Michelle. So could you answer some questions?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the questions is that, is it common or acceptable or expected to save and reuse materials? For example, save the driftwood and reuse to make very different ikebana. Yes, absolutely. So this driftwood, again, Mariev kindly offered all of her driftwood pieces to the school to use for this exhibition. And so the driftwood are huge pieces and they'll all be reused over and over for several different types of displays. And as I mentioned, one ikebana arrangement, just because it uses the same materials, it can look entirely different the next time around with a different artist or with a different choice in style or in a different season, depending on what's available. So that's absolutely acceptable to reuse materials. And then things, it depends on how things last. So in the Ohara School, typically the materials are living. So if you have maybe leather fern and it's doing really well, you could use it for your next arrangement. But if you're using tulips, you might only have a few days of them before really they can't really be used again. So the next question, oh, I think that's actually all of the questions.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much now. So we like to wrap up the event. So again, thank you very much. And I hope you have the pleasant evening and see you soon again in our event. So thank you and bye.